All right, we're underway for lesson 4 on World War I. March 20th, 2019, and you see we're competing with Spanish class, Spanish video. How crazy would it be if they were showing my video? Would that be weird? Okay, anyway, gents, so we should be able to finish up today. The real focus, of course, is the effect that the war has on the United States. And we had left off yesterday talking about major migration of African Americans from the rural South to the urban North, right? Major transformation for them, for cities, and is going to have long-term implications. In World War II, there'll be another major wave of migration, really transforming much of the African American community from a mostly rural population to a more urban population. We also talked about a major change in the way the United States government related itself to business. We had always had, with a lot of exceptions, but for the most part, we kind of expected the federal government to have what type of relationship with business, with big business. What's that famous French phrase? Laissez-faire. Very good. Okay, look, business will take care of itself. We have a self-correcting market. When things go badly, the market will fix itself, and government doesn't need to get involved. We know there have been exceptions. Just a couple of years before the war, the federal government, the Supreme Court of the Justice Department went after John Rockefeller, so that was a big involvement. But this was much bigger. Federal government, under the War Industries Board, would now have the power to direct parts of the economy towards the war effort, right? That really had never been done before. The government telling businesses that are privately owned by private stockholders and owners, and just proprietors, owners, you must now do these things and sell these things at these prices. And the guy they put in charge, well-known capitalist Bernard Baruch. Okay, years later, we go on to pretty much predict the stock market crash in 1929. Okay, and if you didn't think they were serious about it, hey, the railroad system, right, the lifeblood of the economy, was pretty much taken over by government. It should be noted, liberals, populists, socialists years earlier had been calling for this type of involvement, were rejected, and now when we need it, the federal government steps in. We also mentioned how labor unions, which for years had been, of course, a major thorn in the side of big business, were kind of told to be more patriotic, asked to refrain from striking or begging or pushing for wage requests, wage increases. Do your part, and of course the demand for goods would go up. Therefore, the wages were supposed to go up, but they didn't. Much of that money was diverted toward the war effort. Of course, after the war, many labor unions would be looking for the government to make good on those promises. You will help us, right? We'll see if that actually. We'll look and see if that actually happens. Okay, what actually happens in the war? Well, the United States, we declare war in 1917, and we put well-known General John Pershing in charge of the organization that we call the Army, is what is called the American Expeditionary Force. They're the ones going to leave from here and go over there. Remember the video from yesterday, right? However, we were pretty unprepared. So unprepared that we actually had to use the U.S. Marines to go fight inland on the Western Front. Remember, we talked about Marines usually are the advanced force that really just does the first attacks from water to land. Well, they pushed the Marines inland since our Army was taking a long time to mobilize. Look at the dates. We declare war in April of 1917. We do not really put major, what is it, Will? You don't put any major armies into the fields, into battle, until June of 1918. I thought Russia was the nation that was supposed to be slow. We take over a year to fully mobilize. And for 5 months, we fight in a number of, but 4 major battles will be at Chateau Thierry, Saint Mahel, the Second Battle of the Marne, and at Belleau Wood. In each case, stopping the flow of German attacks in their last-ditch attacks against the Western Front, against France. In just those 4 battles, we end up losing 126,000 men. Imagine averaging 30,000 men lost per battle, right? In just that 5-month period, that actually, in time, 126,000 lost in just 5 months is a greater rate than the 600,000 lost in the Civil War. No one ever thought that could be possible. In November of 1918, so this is in effect the 5th year of fighting, right? 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Germany and the Allies sign an armistice that goes into effect famously at the 11th hour, 11 a.m., on the 11th day of the 11th month, right? The famous armistice, the negotiated stop to the fighting so that both sides could negotiate. And the understanding was Germany was calling it quits. Germany goes, basically appeals, strangely enough, to the United States for peace terms. Why do you think that would be the case? Let me take a stab. Why would Germany ask the U.S. for terms of peace when they've been fighting them only for 5 months, fighting everyone else for basically 5 years?
Yep. Caused more destruction on the other countries.
Say again?
They caused more destruction.
The U.S. did?
No. Germany's caused more destruction
on the other countries. Yes, sure. Yeah, you could say that. They knew that Germany, Britain, and France were going to, be harsh. Yeah.
Basically, the U.S. would have less of a penalization than the other countries.
That's what they thought. And what gave them that idea? Why would the U.S. just lost 125,000 men in a short amount of time? What made them think? What about Woodrow Wilson and the things he's been talking about made the Germans think that they could get good terms from the United States? Yep.
The U.S. Entered the war for a moral cause, so they thought that they would be a bit more lenient since they weren't so violent against them.
Yeah, could be so. Yeah, they're only fighting for a little while. What about Woodrow Wilson? What had he been talking about for the last year or so? I don't remember, or actually for the last couple of years. Remember what were his famous, 14 points. Okay? That sounded pretty good to him. We're not going to talk too much about trench warfare. Before we look at Wilson's 14 points, let's look at how destructive this war was. Okay, you don't have to take any of this down. Let's just take a glance. Right? Casualties in World War I. Anyone remember what we had said was the normal percentage or casualty rate for soldiers in battle throughout most of history? Obviously, there are some exceptions. We don't know what is the percent chance that you'll get wounded if you're a soldier that goes into battle? You know? The normal rate over the course of human history is believed to be around 3%. You got a 1 in 33 chance of being wounded. Still a pretty high chance, I'd say. 3%, wounded or killed. It's pretty high. Some wars have been much higher. Some have been much less. The rate in the Afghanistan war, not that any death or injury is okay, but we're at 0.6% or something like that for soldiers for American soldiers in Afghanistan. Again, not excusing the war, but it's at a much lower rate. We don't have that same death or casualty rate. Yeah. You're confusing World War I and World War II. Okay? World War I, they were an allied power. Look at those numbers. Let's just look at the United States first. If you look at these numbers, they put 4 million men in the field. They lost 126,000 men, right? Another 234,000 are wounded. So you're talking about 450,000 men. Now, 4,000 or so were missing. Talking about an 8% casualty rate of the total mobilized. Guys, if you were to, look at the United States in 1919, all you saw were just boatloads of troops coming home from Europe And then the large numbers of caskets and the large numbers of, amputees and people that are wounded for life. And that we only had, we had those numbers. They were huge. But look at what the rest of Europe put up with. These are almost unthinkable numbers. Russia, 12 million men they put into the field. Remember, Russia pulled out of the war. Got nothing out of it. 1.7 million dead. Another 5 million wounded. 2.5 million Russian boys were somewhere in the mud on the Eastern Front.